We have this story that the U.S. economy ground to a halt at the end of 2015, and we know that the markets opened on the first of the year, the worst opening week in the history of Wall Street. Where are the markets right now, T-Ray, approximately?
Dow's down 54 points.
Okay, that's not too bad. But American manufacturing makes up 10% of the economy, is in a recession, and the industry's key index has declined for 6 straight months. So what does all this mean? Let's find out. Economist and author of Aftershock, Protect Yourself and Profit in the Next Global Financial Meltdown. It's a pleasure to welcome to the show Bob Wiedemer. Bob, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Doug. Thanks for inviting me on.
I appreciate you coming on. So does this go along with your analysis? Are we has the economy, quote-unquote, ground to a near halt?
Yeah, I think you need to use the term near halt. Despite my writing the book Aftershock and so forth, short term, I'm not so sure we're going to head into recession. I mean, we've had slow growth for a while. It'll get slower, though, and could border on recession. We've got problems in the oil industry. That's huge. And as you mentioned, manufacturing. Consumers just spending like we'd hoped. So there's a lot of reasons to think it's going to get a lot slower, even with at least the job growth that the government's saying. So, yeah, slow down, maybe recession, but I'm not ready to go there quite yet.
Now, here's what I think is a profound change in our lifetimes, and that is the fact that the savings rate has ticked up. Personal savings rate released last Friday ticked up to 5.4% in December compared with 5.2% in November. And that worries people because they say, well, if people are saving, it's because they're not spending and they don't have confidence and blah, blah, blah. But we've got to figure, it seems to me, we've got to figure out a way where we should be encouraging and people could save without it negatively impacting the economy.
Well, isn't it interesting? You pointed out, you're right. We used to save a lot more. That's part of how we built up the big capital base we have. But what's happening is I think you're talking about things that really go to the heart of why we have a fragile economy and why it feels worse than maybe, some of the figures say is it is fragile. I mean, the fact that we're worried about or have to deal with the fact that the savings is going to be a problem for our economy should tell you there's real fragility out there. And, just like real incomes are not growing at all. I mean, hardly have grown since 1987 for much of America. So adjusted for inflation. So you're really getting at the heart of kind of the fragility that's not showing up in the numbers, the fact that we're all worried that, oh, my God, we might get back to a regular savings rate, and that's going to kill our economy or kill our growth.
Well, it's also the job issue and the types of jobs that we're growing. We can boast about job growth, but what kinds of jobs are we growing, and what do they pay? And are the jobs numbers legitimate, or are they essentially cooked data if we're counting people working 20 hours a week or 25 hours a week who once worked 40 hours a week or more as fully employed, then we're getting a false picture of where we really stand.
And that's why looking at incomes really gives you a much clearer picture, is the incomes are not rising. And that, I'll have to say that's not just a last 3-year problem or just since the financial crisis. It's been something that's been going for a while, is incomes simply are not rising. So, I was at a bar in downtown D.C., and I was kind of joking with the guy behind the counter, and he was from Georgetown University. And I said, well, gee, I guess that's what you get from going to Georgetown, a high-level school. You get to have a high-level bartending job, right?
Yeah, I'm sure. I said, gee, thanks.
You're right. Right. So anyway, but there's some real issues with trying to get very good high-paying jobs like we might remember them in the 60s or even 70s, despite the problems. There are a lot of good jobs created then.
We're talking with Bob Wiedemer, economist. He's the author of Aftershock, Protect Yourself and Profit in the Next Global Financial Meltdown. Just last night at dinner, a friend was saying, I really just want to park cash and leave it there until this blows over. And that phrase, this blows over. You can't really describe what this is, except that we know that this makes us nervous.
Well, I think this is the lack of the Fed printing money. The Fed doesn't have the stock markets back anymore, and it ain't going to blow over until the Fed prints again. So this isn't just this. I mean, this is the first time since the financial crisis we've gone any length of time without the Fed printing a lot of money and having our back. It's been since October of 2014. And that's the real problem, in a sense, from the stock market standpoint. I don't think that's the solution to our problems, but that is what's been pumping up the stock market, and that's what this is, until they print again, don't expect the stock market to go up a whole lot and likely go down.
I just read that 93% of investors lost money in January. 93%.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yes.
One of the issues through all of this is the roller coaster ride that we've seen. And a lot of Americans went to see the movie The Big Short, and you see. Now, granted, maybe it's a film, it's not a documentary, but it gives a really good idea of what went on during the housing meltdown of 2008. And then you see headlines like George Soros at an economic conference in Indonesia saying that he thinks that the conditions are the same as they were in 2008. We see the Royal Bank of Scotland tell their customers, their clients, to sell everything. That was a quote. You've got Morgan Stanley saying that there's a 20% chance of recession this year. So, you add it all up, and it certainly doesn't inspire confidence.
No, it doesn't. In fact, I was surprised that you mentioned that RBS comment about sell everything. That's surprising for a big mainstream bank as opposed to maybe some other people who, said things like that, maybe a George Soros or so forth. But it does inspire confidence, and it's not just in the U.S. It is around the world. I mean, I was looking at Korea. We don't think much about it, but they had declining exports every month of last year. Their biggest export client is China, but this is the kind of thing that's happening all around the world. I was just seeing the ruble, Russian ruble, and Turkish lira hitting record lows. So, it's an around the world problem, and that's definitely not inspiring confidence in U.S. investors or the U.S. in general.
Yeah, no, there's reasons for folks to be nervous. All right, listen, Bob, thanks so much for coming on with us. We appreciate it.